The debate on who is going to win between two of the most iconic monster characters to ever come on screen, being Godzilla and King Kong, has been a big one in the monster community ever since it was confirmed by Legendary Films that the two were indeed set to star in an upcoming sequel. Now, the obvious winner does seem to be Godzilla when you take a look at the most glaring equation in this battle: size. The G-Man is considerably larger. Kong in the Skull Island film was about 32 meters or 104 feet tall, and he weighed somewhere around 158 tons. Legendary's Godzilla is 116 meters tall, 350 feet, and they have him listed at 90,000 tons, but I feel like that's kind of some gibberish nonsense, so really, his actual weight's kind of unknown. No one really knows how much Godzilla weighs. But what some people haven't heard is that this version of Kong is still relatively young regarding his species. And the story of Skull Island takes place in the 1970s, so Kong has had some time to grow. But how much has he actually grown in this time? Well, you have to be kind of realistic. Even though Kong's relatively young, he's still probably really old. You know, at least as far as us humans go. So in the 40 years or so since the story of Skull Island took place, I'm guessing that he maybe grew another 50 to 100 feet, putting him somewhere between 150 and 200 feet tall. About half the size of what Godzilla is going to be my call. So he's still not quite as big, but it's big enough to where at least you can say he has a chance at actually competing against Godzilla. And it's not like Kong's some sort of chump either. First off, he has brains and bronze. It's usually you have one or the other, right? But Kong has both. He's intelligent as far as monsters go, and he's beefy as fuck. And when you have those two attributes and you combine them with the ability to be able to use tools or weapons, man, it creates a deadly combo, and we've seen this in Skull Island. Kong seems to have a pretty good defense too. He was getting peppered by all sorts of bullets and explosions, and the skull crawlers are tearing at his flesh. But he was able to handle most of it without really being affected too much. It seems like he definitely feels the pain from these attacks, but he has a massive heart. And by that I don't mean his actual pumping heart, I mean the fact that it's kind of like he's courageous. He's like a boxer or a UFC fighter. If you've ever used a term used with them where they have heart, it pretty much just means they refuse to go down no matter how much they're getting their ass beat. It's one of the better traits you can kind of have. But when Kong does go down, he gets back up fast. He doesn't need a whole day to recharge. He just needs to lay down and take a little power nap for a few minutes, and he's right back in the game. Now, what we're going to bring up next is really a wild card in this fight. The classic Kong electrical power. Now, we first seen this used way back in the 60s with the original Kong vs. Godzilla film. During their fight, Kong decides to use electrical powers of sorts to be able to kind of stand a chance against Godzilla, since he's literally, he doesn't have atomic breath or any of the crazy abilities that Godzilla has. While it kind of made sense back then because that Kong was kind of like a Frankenstein sort of thing, it really would be kind of cheesy if this new Kong just was like... That would probably be a bit too much in this version of the MonsterVerse. But what really could be a cool thing if they want to do this is that they just give a nice little nod to this classic fight and ability. Maybe have them fight in a gigantic, massive electrical storm to where Kong isn't necessarily using the electricity, but it's just around them and it's kind of affecting the fight. That would be just a nice little nod. When this fight does go down though, Kong isn't just going to walk all over Godzilla. He's got plenty of weaknesses. First off, he's simply just flesh. No matter how much of a pounding he can take, he's just skin and muscles. He doesn't have extra hard scales or any sort of crazy sort of armor around his body. And he'll always be smaller than Godzilla. We're not going to see the two being the exact same size in this fight. And he doesn't have any special powers like Godzilla. He doesn't have atomic breath. He can't do crazy somersaulting kicks. Yet. While Godzilla is not quite as intelligent as Kong, he's no mental slouch either. We saw him learn during his fight with the Mutos, and change up his fighting style to come out on top. The Godzilla we seen in 2014 was also a bit out of shape, you could say. When was the last time he was out fighting any monsters? He got a little chunky. So if I was a betting man, I would say Godzilla will be even more powerful and deadly than he was in the introduction film. But he will also always have a few flaws that will allow Kong to be able to get the upper hand in some situations. That being, he's just insanely slow. He's that massive, he's just not going to be able to move very quick. And when he has big battles where he takes up a lot of energy to be able to come out on top, he passes out and he needs to just recharge. And it takes a while. It's not just a few minutes like what we've seen with Kong. It took him a whole night into the next day before he was able to get up again. And Godzilla really just likes to take damage more than block it. He's kind of like Rocky in that regard. He likes to block with his face, if you know what I mean. So this is how I think the fight may go down. A massive storm is taking place, one of the biggest that Earth has seen in many years. The two will meet, and their egos will force them to have to fight to be able to prove which one is better. Godzilla will gain the upper hand at first, just due to his sheer size, and Kong not knowing how to combat him. He's never seen anything like this. He's used to fighting stuff that's smaller or the same size as him, so when he first sees Godzilla, he's gonna be like, damn! This is gonna be hard. But Kong's very smart. He learns very fast that he will need to use his mobility, climbing off of buildings and his surroundings. Maybe even Godzilla himself. And he's definitely going to need outside weapons to be able to stand a chance. He grabs boulders, throwing them at Godzilla. He grabs trees, using them like bats, smacking Godzilla wherever he can. And this works, but Godzilla just mostly gets annoyed with this. He's not gonna go down because he threw a rock at his face. So Godzilla will counter these weapons that Kong is using with his own natural weapons. He doesn't need to grab outside sources. He uses his giant tail to smack Kong right in the face, launching him hundreds of feet. And then now that he put a little distance between him and the big ape, he uses his special power, his atomic breath. This is where the real damage comes in, remember? Kong doesn't have any armor, he's just flesh and bone. It's like shooting a flamethrower at a human. We're not going to be able to handle that very well. Kong proceeds to get his ass whooped for a little bit. So now that he knows he is fighting a losing battle, he grabs a nearby human lightning pole or some other man-made electricity conductor and proceeds to stab it in Godzilla's mouth, his eyes, his nose, any weak spot on the big giant's body. The massive storm that is taking place gets even worse now, and Godzilla gets pounded by a lightning strike after lightning strike due to Kong shoving that big old metal rod right in his face. Godzilla is a god, but in this scenario he falls to the king. But is he really defeated? From the point that Godzilla falls down, a few things may come into play. I doubt even one of the greatest forces of nature, like a lightning bolt, can stop Godzilla permanently. Kong would need to fall back during this time if he wanted to stay alive, but as soon as Godzilla gets up, he knows that he's going to have to finish the giant ape once and for all. No more games. Let's say the fight did play out like this. Would you say that it's a test between the two to know that they are almost equal and have no need to fight to the death? Maybe starting their relationship that could be used to fight together the other more devastating threats approaching. Who knows, but let us know what you think in the comments. Alright guys, so that's what I think may happen in this fight between Godzilla and Kong. If Kong wants to have any chance of beating Godzilla, he's gonna really have to use, I think, some sort of electrical power. Now, I don't think it's gonna be coming from him. I don't think he's gonna be able to summon it out of his body. But I really do think that this Kong, being really special and using tools, is going to take advantage of his surroundings, being this gigantic storm that I think may happen, and he's gonna freaking use the electricity that way. That's my call. Big thanks to Zimaut Animation for allowing us to be able to use his awesome animation in this video. Please go check out his channel. He's got some awesome videos, specifically this whole fight between Kong and Godzilla. If you want one of the best takes of this that you'll ever see, go watch it. It's probably going to even be better than what we're going to see in the actual movie. So go check him out. I'll put links to that in the description. Until next time, residents, this has been Jacob, and peace out.